All right, if you've been anywhere near the world of generative AI lately, you know it feels like you're swimming in a sea of buzzwords. Seriously, it seems like every single day there's a new term to learn, a new architecture that's going to change everything. So let's cut through the noise and actually make sense of it all. So let's get right to it. You hear these terms all the time: LLM, RAG, AI agent, and now this new thing, agentic AI. What is the real difference here? Are these totally separate technologies, or is there some kind of connection? Well, that's exactly the question we're going to tackle today. You know, the best way to understand all this isn't to think of them as totally different things, but as an evolution. Think of it like a ladder. Each step builds right on top of the one before it, adding brand new capabilities and unlocking new possibilities. So, how about we start at the bottom and climb our way up step by step? Okay, our first step, the absolute foundation of this whole structure, is the large language model. You've heard it a million times, the LLM. This is really where it all begins. So, what is an LLM at its core? Honestly, it's a super sophisticated next word prediction engine. You give it a prompt, and it just generates text based on all the patterns it learned from the massive amount of data it was trained on. It's what we call context-free, which is just a fancy way of saying it's only responding to your prompt with no other outside information. And that's the key thing to get here. On one hand, LLMs are pretty simple and incredibly fast. That makes them awesome for things like drafting a quick email or powering a general-purpose chatbot. But, and this is a big but, their limitations are just as important. They don't really have deep reasoning skills, and crucially, they have zero access to new or real-time data. They only know what they were trained on, and that's it. And that limitation we just talked about, that lack of new data, that brings us perfectly to the next step up the ladder, RAG. It stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is how we give the model a connection to the real, live, outside world. So how does RAG actually work? Well, you can kind of think of it like bolting a search engine onto an LLM. Before the model even tries to answer you, the RAG system first goes out and searches external data sources. This could be your company's private documents, or it could be the live internet. It grabs all the relevant info, and then it hands it to the LLM to use when it crafts its answer. Now, this makes RAG systems way more accurate and really powerful for domain-specific Q&A. But here's the catch. A RAG system is only as good as the information it can search. If the source data is junk, well, the answers are going to be junk too. Its quality is 100% dependent on that data. Okay, so far, we've gone from just generating text to retrieving information. The next leap, though, is a big one. It's about taking action. So, welcome to the world of the AI agent. An AI agent is a total game changer because it's not just responding to you anymore. It's actually working for you. It's an autonomous system. What that means is it can create a plan, it can reason about the steps it needs to take, and it can actually use digital tools like APIs or other software to complete a whole workflow. And this is what's so cool about agents. They are goal-oriented. You don't just ask them a question, you give them a task, a mission. This makes them perfect for those structured, multi-step jobs like automating research, processing a bunch of data, or even managing complex travel bookings. So, if one agent is that powerful, what do you think happens when you get a whole team of them working together? Well, that brings us to the very top of our ladder, agentic AI. The easiest way to think about agentic AI is like a digital project team. It's a whole system where you have multiple agents, and each one has a special skill. Maybe one is a research expert, another is a brilliant data analyst, and a third is a fantastic writer. They all coordinate, negotiate their tasks, and divide up the work to tackle really complex problems. What makes these systems so incredibly powerful is that they are adaptive and persistent. They actually use shared memory and reasoning across the different agents. So this isn't about a one-off task anymore. It's about solving large-scale, ongoing challenges where the whole system learns and gets better over time. So let's do a quick recap of our climb up that ladder. We started with the simple prediction of an LLM. Then we added real-world knowledge with the retrieval of a RAG system. From there, we enabled tasks with the automation of an AI agent. And finally, we unlocked true teamwork with the collaboration of agentic AI. See the progression? Now, this whole framework is a fantastic guide, but it's really important to remember that this is all part of a very active, ongoing conversation happening right now in the tech world. The lines are blurring, and people are building on these ideas every single day. For instance, take Mega Chuhan, a lead technical writer who's deep in this field. She says what's so exciting is how these multi-agent systems make real, measurable, end-to-end workflows possible, the kind of thing a business can actually trust and put into production. And, other people are already thinking about what that next step on the ladder might be. James Badgerow suggests a fifth stage he calls a coherence OS. This would be a system that sits on top of everything else to ensure there's trust and alignment between the humans and the AI, turning AI into what he calls a true partner. But it's also really important to have a critical perspective, right? As Geert Bakke points out, these are pretty broad categories. In the real world, trying to force a specific system into one of these neat little boxes can be tough. So we should see this ladder as a helpful map, but not as some kind of rigid, absolute law. So let's bring it all together one last time in a little cheat sheet. If we map these four architectures out, you can see that clear progression. The core function evolves from simple prediction with LLMs to knowledge retrieval with RAG, to autonomous execution with AI agents, and finally to multi-agent collaboration with agentic AI. And that progression unlocks more and more complex uses, from just drafting content all the way to solving huge dynamic problems. And that leaves us with one final pretty big question to think about. As these collaborative agentic systems, these AI teams become more and more common, what does that mean for us? What does human leadership even look like when your team is part human and part AI? That right there is something we are all going to be figuring out together.